Hey everyone, this is Nitro. So, I actually hit Langrisser rank on January 4th, 2020.
All hail, King of the Losers!
Actually, the reason why I got into Langrisser rank was because originally, when I was playing some Apex Arena matches yesterday, I planned to quit as soon as it got 2 losses in a row. Well, what ended up happening was I ended up winning so consistently that I ended up having around 11 wins and 2 losses. So, ended up playing 13 matches, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 matches in total. And there were 11 wins, which was enough to move me from Gold 2 at around, I think, 1720 points, all the way up to 1901. So, just like that, I managed to get into Langrisser without even really meaning to, in truth. So, my final record ended up being 33 wins, 23 losses. I actually had, I think before this, I was at what? I was at around 21 wins and 21 losses, so it was break even at that point before I started playing yesterday. So, I thought I would go over some of the more interesting battles, and as well as briefly cover the team formation that I ended up using as my final formation. So, first things first, I actually ended up removing all my mages. My party no longer has a single mage in it. Lana is gone, Rachel never made into my party in the first place, Rene was only used for Season 1, and Imelda was also only used for Season 1. So, instead of them, there was one mage, Bozel, right? Because but I really don't consider Bozel a mage, in large part because he's primarily here to faction buff and potentially put targets to sleep, right? And also potentially use Earthquake or Black Hole. Pretty rare though. Most of the time, Bozel gets banned pretty frequently, so it's very rare for me to actually play him. That's why I just completely forgot about him. But other than Bozel, you can see that I had brought basically 3 tanks. Landius, Juggler, and Bernhard, right? Listel is in everyone's PvP party, or should be, right? Elwyn is in everyone's PvP party, or should be, right? And then 4 healers, which were Iris, Iris, Chloe, and Liana. So, rounding up the party, there were 2 assassins, Zerida and Omega here. And then, as for the remaining few slots, there was Luna, who I also think is a must-have for everyone's party. Yulia, who is kind of like Elwyn, right? Just different factions, but very similar to Elwyn in terms of performance. And last but not least is Leonhard, who is an AoE attacker, but can also use an AoE attack and then follow up with, let's say, a single target strike like Air Slash to kill off somebody, depending on how you use them. So this was my party of 15 for Apex Arena. No Leon, no mages, no Ledin, no Rene, and no Ulti Muller or Shuri. And this worked out incredibly well, because basically, by replacing Lana with Omega, I got myself a more powerful single target striker who can ignore guard. And so, unlike Lana, who has to pretty much target Landius, for example, Omega can pretty much ignore Landius to target the weak mages and whatnot. But in truth, the secret sauce to this team formation ended up actually being Iris. More than anything else, I think Iris won me all the matches that I played yesterday. So, I decided that to cover these 13 battles, I'm going to divide this into, I guess, a series of Apex Arena videos. The first part will cover the Zerida battles, right? So I'll cover the Zerida battles that I've had, which I think there were 5 of them. The second part, I'll cover the Omega battles, right? Which I think there's 4. And then the final video, I'll cover the other battles. For example, the Listel battle, the battle where I lost against the 1728 attack Shuri, and I guess the pick ban victory, and the other results. So there will be 3 videos. Video 1, Zerida. Video 2, Omega. Video 3, the remaining battles that I would cover. So here we go. The first so this video will have 5 videos of Zerida being used. Let's start with the first. So here, I'll start with the Simi battle. So in this battle, I should mention, I've been able to play Zerida and Omega a lot more now because of the number of threats in my party, in my Apex 15. When we look at it, first ban, like deadly threats, include Listel, Leonhard, Zerida, Omega, right? That's 4 different high damage, high threat characters. So as a result, most people choose to ban Listel and Leonhard instead, which leaves me free to use Zerida and Omega. Just an interesting point I wanted to mention. So, most of my opponents that I face usually have Listel and so on as well, so it can be hard for me to ban. I usually just choose to ban the enemy Zerida anyways. It just simplifies the battles for me, and that's what I went for to start. So enemy Zerida banned, and he bans my Listel, and he picks his Juggler. So to counter that, with Juggler picked, I now start banning healers. So I banned his Liana and Iris here. And then I choose to play my Zerida. He bans my Juggler and Omega, both characters who can get faction buffed by Zerida, and plays Tiaris. So I ban his Luna and Leonhard, characters who can get faction buffed by Juggler, and I choose to play Langrisser as my tank. He now chooses to ban 2 healers, Liana and Tiaris, and plays Elwyn. So, big threat there. Nonetheless, battle continues. I ban Yulia and Bozel here. Yulia was obvious. Bozel was because I wasn't sure who else to ban. Maybe I should have banned Landius, but I didn't think Landius was that big of a threat. So I chose to ban Bozel. And I play my Iris. And as I keep saying, Iris is my secret weapon repeatedly in these fights. You know, even though I use Zerida, Iris is what enables me to have very easy victories. So now, he now bans Bozel and Bernhard while playing Varna of all characters. In some ways, I guess Simi has a Season 1 Apex box. So that's why Varna is still in his box. So now I ban his Landius and Chloe now, second healer, second tank, leaving him just 2 attackers. And I choose to play Elwyn, ultimately. Right? Elwyn's Sword Soul is a big threat against enemies in general. You know, he has a faction buff that can buff up Yulia if I get to use her. Just all-round useful character. And that's why Yulia gets banned and Leonhard gets banned. So, my opponent then plays Cherie. So I now have the choice between Luna and Chloe. And I ultimately decide on Luna. For a single target strike who has a lot of range. Right? So with Luna, I just run Wind Spiral, Move Again, Raging Thunder, no faction buff, but to compensate for that, Iris is running Mass Resist, because Mass Resist does provide magic defense increase of 30%. So effectively, for one attack, Luna has 30% increased magic defense, allowing her to one-shot anything. Elwyn is bringing faction buff and Sword Soul. Zerida is bringing faction buff, Backstab, and Shadow Raid. Pretty consistent in general for these fights. And Landius has his usual skill set. So here we go. Enemy moves up aggressively to start with Juggler. I'm pretty much doing the same. I'm not afraid to get into an engagement at the start here. And so I approach. There's not very many characters I need to fear in Simi's part of truth. I guess the biggest threat was just Elwyn, right? But as long as I stay outside of Elwyn's range, I should be fine. Cherie here has Shadow Raid and Lightning Speed and Legion. 1367 attack, which wasn't too scary in truth. And I do have Zerida activate her faction buff, standing pretty far back. Breeze activated. Luna moves down and provides the King's Crown buff to my Zerida. So Zerida does have plus 20% damage dealt. And finally, Mass Resist is used on my part, buffing up Luna. He retreats back, so I start moving forward a bit. Still staying outside of Elwin's range. That was the most important part. And now, I teleport Zerida forward. Because with this teleport, I knew Zerida could attack anything in his party. So my opponent uses Varna to try to douse some arrows to remove buffs on my Zerida and do some damage to her. Right. I guess the hope was she would not be able to one-shot anything with some damage, right? And maybe if she loses some attack or whatever. Nonetheless, I just have Zerida come up, Shadow Raid the enemy Varna. He now approaches with his Elwyn, so I have my Elwyn Sword Soul the enemy juggler. I wasn't expecting a kill, but I was what I wanted, and what happened was Sword Soul cannot heal yourself. My opponent now attack blessings his Shuri. Shuri uses her attack blessing Shadow Ray to attack my Zerida and didn't kill her. This, I think, was a mistake on his part. He should not have melee attacked with Shadow Raid. Right? If he had done a 2-range attack with Shadow Raid, I think he would have had more success. Maybe. But by doing a direct assault at 1 range, Shuri ended up doing half damage. And the Angels plus half damage Shuri was not enough to kill off my Zerida. Right? Especially when Zerida has minus 20% damage taken. Right? So, saved yet again in many ways by Iris. Because the Iris teleport buff kept my Zerida alive. So now, I follow up Wind Spiral, Raging Thunder with Luna. I thought I would be able to kill this Shuri, but I was totally wrong. Unexpectedly, that was not a kill. I think it's because Iris's Mass Resist expired. When I activated Wind Spiral, it removed it. So that was my miscalculation. If I just go back a turn here, yes, it only had 1 turn left. So that's why it failed. Right. So I would have been better off, for example, attacking this juggler instead. Nonetheless, battle continues. Right. Enemy uses Sword Soul on my Elwyn, one-shotting him. And I can heal up my Zerida and have Zerida finish off the enemy juggler. He mass heals to protect Shuri, but I just have Landius guarded. So now, enemy Elwyn attacks my Landius, but without Sword Soul, I'm not afraid of it. Florence also kicked in to do some damage, but Elwyn heals the most of that up. Not a big deal, you know, I just start healing up my Landius because I was expecting the second attack from Shuri. And so, I now have Zerida wipe out the enemy Tiaris, removing the healer. Landius guards Zerida. Luna will attack Shuri and weaken her. So Landius continues to duel against Elwyn. Still doesn't die. And what that showed was A, Simi's Elwyn is not that strong. 1137 attack was not enough. Actually, no, this is actually after he lost his faction buff. But B, most importantly, is my Landius is now ridiculously powerful. 860 defense. He is a 6-star Landius. It's the reason why I raised my Landius up to 6 stars. Because I knew at high star levels, Landius is super tanky. Whoops. So yes, when he attacked, he still had the faction buff, 1322 attack. But it just shows how strong Landius is at 6 stars. So, with that, opponent runs away, right? He wasn't even able to kill my Landius once. The immortality never even kicked in. So while he did take out my Elwyn with Sword Soul, it left Landius as a super tank in the battlefield. So in some ways, I should mention, if he had changed the soldiers on his Elwyn to, let's say, Phalanx soldiers, I would have had a lot more trouble. But because he was using the mass made soldiers, it was very easy for me as a result. So that was the first Zerida win. Let's move on to the second one. Alright, so once again, out of the 4 deadly threats I mentioned, Leonhard is banned first this time. So I ban the enemy Zerida and play my own. He bans my Juggler and my Bozal and plays Landius. So I ban his Liana and Chloe healers to ban to start, playing my Landius. Omega and Listel are banned, and he plays Iris. I now ban the enemy Listel and Rachel, right? Characters who can get faction buffed by Landius and are deadly threats. And I play my own Iris. Enemy bans Elwyn and Luna and plays his own Luna. So I ban his Yulia and Elwyn, right? With Luna in play for potential faction buff, I really didn't want to face Yulia. And Elwyn, because, well, I keep facing Elwyn and I'm not a big fan of facing him. And when I looked at his party, his remaining characters, not too many threats remaining. At least that's how I saw it. So I play my Liana at this point. And the enemy plays Leonhard. So, I now ban Juggler and Tiaris. Now, there was a little pause there, which meant he actually didn't ban my characters in time. That's why I still have 4 characters to select from for my final choice. So I just choose to bring, I mean, with the 4 characters, I could have chosen, I wasn't even sure who to choose, right? Chloe could have been buffed by Landius, right? Tiaris, Healing Light, I didn't think I needed Healing Light because I already had 2 healers. So, you know, I could have played Yulia, which would have been actually a decent choice. But ultimately I decided on Bernhard. No, not wrong, it's just I wasn't even sure who to bring. Yulia in hindsight probably would have been better, but Bernhard was fine too. Enemy plays Bozal, out of Bozal and Lana. So, I'm going to hold back initially, right, while I set up my characters with faction buffs and so on. I didn't want an engagement early on, especially not when he could have Iris teleport Leonhard up and so on. So the interesting thing here is he teleported Leonhard slightly forward, presumably because he wanted to have Iris teleport him further. At least that was my thought. But I just ran away. Oh, I remember why I picked Bernhard now. Because Bernhard has the faction buff for Iris. That's why. That makes sense. Okay. So he moves up a little bit. I was very leery of Leonhard. So I wanted a faction buff for Iris. That was the reason. So now, I just set up, have Leonhard move forward now. Waiting for the enemy to approach. Zerida moves to the middle. Now the interesting thing here is, what I didn't expect is, my thought was I move up a little. If he has Dark Fusion Sword with +1 range, it would hit my Zerida. But I took that gamble. And he didn't move in, so I got to act again my Zerida. So he uses the Hero Fire Machete, doesn't do any real damage to me. And even moves me even further to Dark Emperor's Sword. Wasn't quite sure what he was planning there, in truth, because he didn't have that much damage in the first place, right? And even that second hit didn't kill anyone. I mean, there was minimal damage. At best, I guess he applied cannot act again effects on all my characters. But to do that, he suicided his Leonhard. Maybe he thought his Leonhard could survive, but what he didn't realize is my Zerida has Backstab. So, with Backstab, I can knock the Royal Cavalry out of the 80% hit point threshold. And thus, Zerida, without even using an attack skill, one-shots Leonhard. So he sacrificed that Leonhard for basically no real gain. My opponent now chooses to teleport, Bozo forward a bit, so I just move back a little. And to counter his teleport, I teleport my Zerida forward. With that teleport, pretty much forced him to come up and throw out that Earthquake. So, Bozo's Earthquake does apply 4 debuffs, right? But I did not activate Liana yet. So Liana casts his heal on Zerida, removing 3 of them. Right? And my Zerida ended up being left with the mobility debuff, which is fine. She is at full hit points as well. So I have Zerida toss out a Shadow Raid now on the enemy Bozo, wiping him out too. I mean, at this point, my enemy ran away. Can't really blame him, right? This is a full hit point Zerida. I had 5 characters against 3. Even if he kills off my Zerida in one shot, let's say with his Luna, I don't think he could have come back from this. But keep in mind, of course, my Zerida does have last rites, so she's not that easy to one-shot either. Alright, so that was the second battle with Zerida. Played out quite a bit differently from the first. And let's do the third one against 251K. This one, 251K is a top 100 player. At least yeah, he's ranked 50th at this time. So this was a more challenging battle, or at least that's what I expected. So here we go. Once again, first ban was Listel. I banned the enemy Zerida and play my own. Omega and Bozo banned. Bozo because Bozo can faction buff up Zerida. Omega because Omega gets faction buff by Zerida. So he plays Landius, and I ban his Listel and Yulia at this point. Right? Not quite sure why I banned Yulia this early, if I'm being perfectly honest. But nonetheless, I play my Juggler. Right? Juggler can still get faction buff by Zerida as well. So, Elwyn and Tiaris are now banned, and the enemy plays his Elwyn. Smart choice, right? Sword Soul and so on. So I ban healers, Tiaris and Iris at this point, right? Tiaris attack blessing, I was scared of that. Iris, because Iris, that teleport skill is just too strong. And I play my own Iris as a result. So he bans my Liana and Bernhard now. Right? Liana act again, Bernhard faction buff for Iris, and plays his own Liana. Juggler and Chloe banned now, right? 2 characters who can prevent fixed damage. And I play Luna, right? So that way my backstab will have full effect at this point from Zerida. Luna, because Luna can get faction buffed by Juggler to one-shot the targets. My enemy now bans my Yulia, as well as Leonhard. Makes sense, right? I have the faction buff from Juggler, so Leonhard has been removed. And he plays Bernhard. So, Bernhard can faction buff up Elwyn. Possibly. But, so I have to shoot and faction buff up Leonhard. So I have to ban Leonhard, right? I banned Luna out of the remaining 3 characters because I felt Zerida can easily take out these 2. I wasn't too sure about Luna, right? So, and I felt Luna was a bigger threat than Bozal and Gizeroth. So I played Chloe, expecting him to play Bozal so that I can remove those debuffs. And as expected, he does play Bozal. So, as always, my setup phase is always hanging back. 351k starts moving in aggressively. I am being super conservative this turn, to the point where I didn't even activate a faction buff on Juggler. No skills were activated on Juggler. That's how defensive I was playing. The only skill I activated this turn was really Zerida, her faction buff. And Iris just moves up. And the enemy chooses to gospel up Langrisser. That was an interesting choice. Not quite sure what was up with that, because it grants him immunity to all debuffs, but I don't really have a debuffer. Right. I mean, I brought Chloe with Blizzard because I was hoping that I might be able to slow the enemy and stop Landius from guarding, but this Landius had skill increased, so clearly it did have an Overlord's badge. So battle continues. Juggler, faction buff now. Enemy moves up. So he's seizing central positioning, and now I teleport my Zerida forward because I felt that Zerida was ready to assassinate targets. Right? So, with this teleport, Bozal is in range, Liana is in range, Bernhardt is in range. But unfortunately, what I didn't realize was Liana could run back far enough out of my Zerida's range. So I mispositioned for that teleport. Probably should have placed her here. But if I did, no. Placing her here wouldn't have worked either. In any case though, I'm not sure there was any teleport location where I could have taken out Liana, unfortunately. And very unfortunately, the enemy Liana applied a mobility buff on Bozal, further messing me up. Nonetheless, I follow my original plan, which is have Luna move forward with Wind Spiral, and Raging Thunder, Bernhardt, killing him in one shot. And because the enemy Bozal got that mobility buff, he was able to put my Zerida to sleep. So I couldn't attack or act. So now the turn goes back to my opponent. And he uses Roar against my Luna. But Luna survives. The Roar attack with only 1.3 times damage was not enough to kill. If this was Frontal Assault, it would have killed my Luna. But he had Roar. So he made a bad skill selection there. So with that, I was able to use my Zerida to Shadow Ray down the enemy Bozal. And he chooses to finish off my Luna, right? He had a choice. What saved me definitely was his mistake with Roar, because he had to attack this Luna. If he was able to attack my Zerida, he probably could have killed this Zerida, in truth. So that paid off for me. Alright, so since Zerida's alive, I can heal her up. And my opponent uses Act Again now on his Elwyn. And so to protect, I use Triton to guard. And I activate Aurora Rings because I just didn't know what else to do. Chloe, in truth. So now my opponent Sword Souls, of course, against Juggler. I now launch. Now, the interesting thing here is I couldn't believe it, but let me just go back a little bit. What was crazy was, first of all, this Elwyn got plus 20% damage dealt buff from Liana. Right? So that attack had an additional 20% damage. And second, he's activated his exclusive sword multiple times. When he attacked here with Sword Soul, when he attacked with Roar, he activated the Light's Illumination so that he could keep using Roar. And when he attacked with Sword Soul here, he activated the Illumination again. So, I start trying to weaken this Owen. And he moves up the guard. So I respond with Blizzard from my clothing. Right? Do some AoE damage, better than nothing, right? I was hoping for the mobility debuff to apply cannot guard on this Landius. Didn't happen, which means he clearly has Overlord's badge. But what's important there is the mobility, the AoE damage did hurt the Landius a lot. So with that damage, I'm able to have Juggler charge forward and Beast Shock the enemy Landius. And with Beast Shock, Landius can no longer guard. So Zerida was able to attack and finish off the enemy element. So Beast Shock completely paying off here, right? Because the Beast Shock effect is cannot move and cannot be guarded, allowing Zerida to finish Owen. So now it's 4v2. Zerida attacks Landius and kills her off for the first time. Now, I should mention as well, the reason he didn't have Liana heal Landius was because of the Beast Shock effect. Right? If Liana had moved up to heal Landius, then Zerida could have just charged in and one-shotted the enemy Liana with backstab. So he had no choice but to retreat Liana. So I was able to kill Landius for the first time, and he had no choice but to run away here. Because he knew I can easily finish off Landius one more time with all my ranged attackers, and then I just have to wipe out Liana. So Zerida coming into play once again, as well as Iris. But in some ways, what really saved me was the skill mistake choices of 251K. That really made a difference in that fight, particularly. Of course, I made mistakes too. In hindsight, I probably should have had Juggler activate his guard skill earlier. Then I could have protected Zerida when she was in the dangerous spot. Stuff like that. So, improvements I could have made in this battle as well, but also mistakes by 251K saved me. So that was the third Zerida battle. 2 more Zerida battles to go in this video, and it's these 2 up here. I'll go over... Well, actually, I'm going to skip this one because Zelda literally just let me win. I'll go over this one though, where I had both Zerida and Omega, which will transition very smoothly into the next video about Omega. So the last battle will be Zerida and Omega. Here we go. So here, Juggler was the first ban, which is a big surprise to me. And Silver Will runs an interesting party. He runs time and space, right? So you can see he has Joshua, he has Angelica for faction buffs, and then he has Listel for cheer if they both get banned, right? It's primarily time and space characters. You can see Leonhard, you can see Sumere, Sakura, Estelle, Rene, Iris, and so on and so forth. With, of course, Listel and so on. So, I start with Zerida. Bozol and Liana are banned next, and he plays Estelle, so I ban Sumere and Listel, the heal reversal characters. If you get rid of those 2, I feel her party, Silver Will's party, is dramatically weakened. So I play Omega next, because he chose to ban other things. He now bans Leonhard and Listel. Not banning my tanks, surprisingly. So, and he plays Sumere. So since my tanks aren't banned, well, for now, I banned his Leonhard and Iris. I feel Iris is like one of the biggest threats in general now. And so I get to play my own Iris to teleport forward. He now bans Landius and Yulia while playing Angelina. Or Angelica. So I ban his healers, Liana and Chloe, leaving only Tiaris. And then I get to play Bernhard, who is yet another tank. He now bans my Chloe and Tiaris, my 2 final healers, and plays Rene. So I choose to ban Olivier and Tiaris, both of his healers. Okay. And in my case, with Elwyn and Lunan left, I choose to play Elwyn, right? With Bernhard's faction buff, just made sense. So my opponent then plays Serena, ending up with 3 tanks. Kind of crazy. I wasn't sure what was up with his party, but when I thought about it for a bit, I realized he was probably aiming to run the Sumere Angelica combo, right? Angelica can wipe out all the soldiers of Sumere, and then Sumere will get, you know, a huge stat bonus from that. So with the huge stat bonus, presumably, Phoenix Dance and Butterfly Dance could do massive damage. So I think that was his battle plan, right? With, let's say, what, 40% damage increase, 40% more attack, along with Phoenix Dance and Butterfly Dance would hit incredibly well. So I knew I had to be careful with that. But my battle plan remains moving forward aggressively initially. Because I knew I had to wipe out. I knew Sumere was absolute top priority for me to kill. So he faction buffs with Angelica, and I respond by teleporting Zerida forward. Right? As I said, I knew I had to kill Sumere ASAP. So teleport Zerida up, she is now in range to attack. And with that, Zerida charges in, backstab, one-shot Sumere, retreats back. And because this whole party of time and space characters is quite slow, you can really counter. Here, he tosses out Rene's attack skill, but it doesn't kill anyone, so I wasn't too worried about it. Angelica follows up with another attack skill, but it does basically no damage, which is no surprise because Angelica is currently, I think, 4 stars, right? Her int is so low, 721. So it did basically nothing to my Zerida. My Bernhard though, can't really move far enough to guard Zerida, but the flip side is, moving up like this allowed Iris to mass heal my Zerida. So, surprisingly, he chooses to use Rene to decay my party. I guess he felt that he needed to apply more debuffs on all my characters. Well, I just run away Zerida. First things first. Get out of range of the enemies. Estelle hits much harder than Angelica did, for sure. Right? But that makes sense. Estelle has a lot more attack. But it wasn't enough damage to kill Omega, who has 9,700 hit points. So, I get to start off by healing up Omega at this point. And then, I have Omega one-shot Rene. So even though he has 2 tanks, didn't matter. Omega is just totally ignoring them. And next, I have my Bernhard move up and Sword Dance to do damage to the enemy. And after that, Elwyn can use his Sword Soul attack against Estelle and actually one-shot her, even though she activated her Bloodline Magic Armor. So, you know, the first Weakening Strike with Sword Dance and the second Sword Soul Strike basically crushed my opponent. At this time, he just has Serena and Angelica against all 5 of my characters. So he runs away. And there we have it. all the battles that I want to show where I used Zerida with great success. So, thanks for watching, everyone. I hope you enjoyed this video of, I guess, a Zerida showcase in Season 2. It's because Zerida is so powerful that I think Sweet Dango has decided to start building up Claret, right? There is currently no real counter to Zerida unless you do have Claret. So, yeah. So on that note, Nitro out.